Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, showcasing the incredible women's hockey players from around the world through compelling interviews and discussions alongside your host, Chris Sinclair. Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today, I'm joined by Abby Lunney, a forward with the Nipissing University Lakers. Abby, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm very excited. Very happy to be here.
Good. So glad to have you here. And there's no better spot to start the conversation than a solid origin story. Everyone loves an origin story. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what got you, what kind of drew you into the world of hockey.
Yeah. So hockey's been a big part of my family for many generations. My granddad, my dad, and my brother have all played. And growing up, I kind of wanted to do whatever my brother was doing. So I followed in his footsteps, and kind of the first time I ever stepped foot on the ice was in our backyard rink, and I was just following him. And yeah, so definitely family. Family was a big aspect of the reason as to why I started to play and the reason I'm still playing today.
Yeah, it's always interesting when it's either it just kind of runs in the blood, which is the case in your situation, but also as soon as you start to see a fellow family member or something like that just like hop on the ice and do that, and it just looks so much fun, it's difficult not to it feels like, not that it ever happened to me, I live vicariously through all of you, but it always seems like it's something that kind of like it's subconscious almost, that you're just like, that's something I need to do. Is that kind of fair to assume?
Yeah, for sure. And now I actually have some cousins as well, and they're also girls, and they have started to play hockey as well. So it's kind of going through the family, which is really cool to see.
How does it feel for you to, I guess, carry on that tradition of inspiring, other family members to hit the ice as well? How does that feel for you, especially being women too?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really cool thing to feel. My cousins and I also train together. So today exactly, we did some sprint training out on the soccer field, and we all live really close to each other. So we go out and support each other all the time. We train together, and we just have a good time. And yeah.
What was it like to be able to have, we'll call it what it is, an ODR? How does it feel to have, just be able to have something like that so accessible to you, rather than having to, book time at a rink or something like that, just to kind of, especially early on, to just kind of enjoy. You don't have to worry about the financial side of things. You just strap on the skates and just hit the ice. What was that like for you?
Yeah, my dad and my grandpa obviously put a lot of effort into building it and everything. But having it so accessible was definitely a bonus. You'd come home from school, could go out and shoot pucks, skate around. And then especially throughout COVID, actually, my cousins and my uncle, they built like a pretty big outdoor rink. So through our little bubble, we would go over there when the rinks were closed and would train and keep on the ice as much as we could. So yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's a perfect segue into, and we're going to get back to a little bit more of the impact that your family's had, because I'd love to hear a lot more about like some more of the specifics there, because I think that's something that's maybe underappreciated especially when you're outside of a hockey family. But I do want to hear a little bit more about some of those early hockey memories for you. What were like some of your favorite earliest hockey memories?
Yeah, so when I was about 4 or 5, that's when I really started to get into hockey. And my grandpa would take me over to the local rink for an early morning skate before school. So usually around 6:30. And we would go, and each day he would make me skate one more lap around the rink. And I would just be like, Granddad, like, come on, I'm tired. And he's like, nope, like one more lap. So we would do that most days of the week. And then he would take me as a reward to go get hot chocolate and a donut and then take me over to school. So that was something that will always be um, important to me and I'll always remember. He was definitely a very important figure as to why I'm still playing today and why I love the sport so much. So,
Yeah, and that sounds fantastic. I mean, despite the extra lap when you really didn't want to, that reward sounds absolutely worth it, though.
yes, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Well, and this is once again, you provided a perfect segue into going back, just taking a bit of a step back to family, and like I said earlier, family. Um, when you're not in a hockey family, or you're not, the parent of a player or something like that, you don't necessarily see or know about just how challenging it can be. Like your parents, your family, they have their own lives, and yet they were able to make it work to support you in your career and moving forward. Could you talk a little bit about the impact that your family had on you, both obviously early on, which I mean, I was going to say was more important than now, but it may be more important now than ever as you continue your career. But what was the impact? What was the impact of your family on you?
Yeah. Kind of as I mentioned, we have a pretty close knit family. So everyone basically from my extended family on both sides live in our small town, Holland Landing. So we've always been supporting each other as much as we can. Um, I definitely never credited my parents enough for driving me all over the world to play, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, of course. My dad coached me up until U18, so uh, obviously he was hard on me, but that's definitely what got me to where I am today. And my mom was my actual team manager as well, up until basically the end. So, family has always been a very important part of my life and for my sport as well.
So knowing that, what was it like for you to get to the rink? You're playing a game, and you look up in the stands and you see family there, the same family that's helped drive you to and from games, to and from practices, all over the world, all those sorts of things. They've been such a vocal supporter of you, but then you actually look up in the stands, and it's like there they are cheering you on after a goal, after a game, all those sorts of things. What does it mean to you to have that, have them there with you along on this journey with you?
Yeah, I think it's a very unique opportunity. Not everyone has such a close family, and not all families are able to go watch their kids or grandkids play. But even when I was in Sweden, my grandparents flew over with my parents to come watch, and it was just another cool experience to have to be able to be playing at like one of the highest levels while also having my family there with me. Um, and yeah, I think no matter where I'm playing, I always bring a pretty large portion of the fans with me. Um, and they're loud as can be. You can hear them. But yeah, they rarely miss a game, so I'm very fortunate, and you definitely don't appreciate it as much when you're younger, but now that I'm older and I really see it, I'm like, wow, it's super unique and I'm just very appreciative.
Yeah, and I mean, you're definitely an electric player. So, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But so it's no surprise that that there might be some loud fans in the stands cheering you on there, especially being your family. Do you touched on the fact that you're obviously your brother. It sounds like was at least the initial inspiration for you to hit the ice. You mentioned your grandfather, pushing you a little bit harder and stuff like that, get that extra lap in. But were there throughout your career, even now, are there other family members who have really, been an inspiration for you and have really helped guide you and maybe, helped in your decision making process as you've continued your career now into U Sports?
Yeah, my dad is definitely, I talked about him a little bit, but um he has always been someone who has pushed me um to be the best I can be, not only as a hockey player but also a person. He played university baseball, so he at McMaster University. So he kind of knows what it's like to be a university athlete and play at a pretty high level and what it takes to get there. So ever since I was young, he coached me and mentored me, and he was just he's amazing. He still supports me, still coaches me whenever I have questions or am struggling or whatever. Yeah, my dad is a very important part of my hockey career.
Yeah, and I can tell because as you were sharing that, you had a big smile on your face, with which only tells me that he may push you and you may be frustrated with him in the moment, but at least you're seeing the bigger picture, and he's able to get the most out of you, and both on and off the ice, and that's obviously made a huge impact for you.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So before we get into the specifics of your first season with Nipissing, it's always an interesting conversation, especially Canadians going, there's the option to go, D1 to NCAA, or there's the option to stay in Canada and go through USports. Could you walk us through, like, what went into the decision for you to stay in Canada, go to and attend USports rather than going to the States, as a number of athletes end up doing?
Yeah. So I did a lot of research regarding both states and Canada schools. I talked to many players, many coaches, and visited many schools, both there and here in Canada. And eventually, when I visited Nipissing, I was just like, wow, this is definitely the perfect fit for me. Um, and I've been fortunate enough to uh, work with Coach Joe Bukovic, who you had on your podcast last week.
Mhm.
Um, and I talked to him many times when making my decision. And something that he said that really stuck with me was something you need to think about is, let's say something happens where you can no longer play hockey. Would you still be happy there? And obviously, going to school is not just about playing hockey, but it's also about getting the education you want to have and whatever program you're looking to go into. And I had this idea in my head that by staying here in Canada, it could help maybe change the perspective of U Sports hockey and the perceptions people have about both the States and Canada. But after my first year, I have nothing but positive things to say, and I'm still overjoyed with the decision I've made, and I love the school I'm at. So,
Yeah, that Bukovic has, even after our conversation, I felt so motivated and inspired. That guy just has, like, wisdom beyond his years. So that gave me chills as you were saying, as you were sharing that. That's obviously it made a difference for you, and I think, as you said, there's this perception, and this is one of the reasons that I always like um, connecting with U Sports athletes, especially U Sports athletes who are Canadian. Typically, truthfully, from my experience, it doesn't really go from American to U Sports. But regardless, it's always great to be able to connect with someone who is in U Sports, because the perception, like you said, is, there is a perception that NCAA or Division One is the way to go if you want to advance your career, when really the programs in Canada, they're really, really solid. And you're a great example of, how successful you can be. Yes, it's only one season, but you've been successful your entire career, and you were able to translate that right to Nipissing, right? So to be able to hear that, I hope that more Canadian hockey players look at, U Sports as a legitimate and a fantastic option. And we're going to talk a little bit more about your experience there. But I kind of want to know. You alluded to it a little bit, just saying, you saw the campus and you liked it. Could you talk a little bit more about as you're looking at your options, especially when you know that there are likely viable options in the States, what was it specifically about Nipissing that caught your attention?
Definitely Coach Darren Turcott. He's amazing. Right away, I had a very good connection with him, and I was like, this is just where I want to be. Um, and also in U18, I had a coach named Brittany Crago. And she also attended Nipissing and played hockey there. And she just had nothing but positive things to say. She was actually on one of the first teams the school had. And there was kind of a connection between all three of us. And I was just like, wow, this is the place I want to be. The facilities, the rink, the dressing room, and the school itself was just perfect and totally what I was looking for. And the town I'm living in is pretty small. So when I got up there, I was like, wow, this is like a school kind of in my town, but still far enough away to be living the university experience a little bit away from home. And then it also had the program that I've always wanted to take, physical and health education. So kind of everything about it was just the key factors, and I just knew that was where I wanted to be as soon as I was there. So
Could you maybe talk a little bit more about how important it is to have that initial connection with the coaching staff there, and what that meant for you to have that connection with the head coach initially, right? Like just good vibes right from the start. What does that mean for you? It's obviously it can be a nerve-wracking experience taking that next step in your career. And what does it mean to you to have that connection, to be able to feel that support? What does it mean to you to just kind of go through that experience and to, like I said a million times now, have that connection with the coach right away?
yeah, obviously that's exactly what you want. You can go to a school and there could be a great hockey program, you could be loving it there, but I think it's very important that you have that connection with the coaching staff as well, because ultimately they're the ones who are pushing you to get better. And Coach Darren obviously had experience playing at the highest level. He played in the NHL for many years, and he's a North Bay born boy. So he came back and he basically said to me as I was in the committing process that once I commit to you, I'll be here for the whole 5 years. So right then and there, I was like, he's committed, and that's what you want. You want a coach who will tell you that type of thing, because then when you build that connection with them, then you'll have him for the whole 5 years. And yeah, he's just an amazing coach. He knows what to say, the right time to do so, and he's constantly pushing you to get better and raises the standards when you reach them. And yeah, so I think it's just very important to make sure that you build that connection with them. And yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, and that's great. It's always, I think especially now more than ever, we're starting to see that finally starting to see that shift where, a coach really wants to connect with you and doesn't necessarily just need to push you and push you and push you and push you and push you. It's more now about like, hey, how do I, and this is actually a conversation I had with your former head coach, Joe Bukovich, around like, how do you connect with an athlete to understand who they are and what they actually need from you, right? You can push an athlete, but are you going to really get the most out of them if you're just pushing them all the time? Probably not. Like, sure, you might get some extra goals or an extra save here and there, but the reality is, like, it's just about how you connect with an athlete. And it sounds like that's what Darren's been able to do. And is that fair to kind of emphasize at this point?
100%. Yes.
Nice. Okay, great. Shout out to Darren. Doing it right. So that's fantastic. What was the jump like? So, we've spoken a little bit about Joe Bukovich, coaches the Etobicoke Dolphins in the OWHL. What was it like to make that jump from the OWHL to USports with Nipissing?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely a jump, but I felt as though my coaches over the years have definitely trained and prepared me for the university level. Um, they would always push us above and beyond, but also knowing when it was too much. And my teammates and coaches at Nipissing definitely helped me to adapt and kind of find my groove as they pushed and gave me a role with the team. And definitely, I was given many opportunities as a rookie, and I never expected to have them necessarily as a first year, but I'm very fortunate for that. And um, yeah, I think I was definitely prepared, but you can never be over prepared or anything like that. So I think once I got there and I met all the teammates and all the coaches and everything, um, it made the jump a lot easier for sure.
Well, and you keep setting me up with these perfect segues. So this is fantastic. So thank you for that. Because I want to know a little bit more about like what did this first season, U Sports making that jump, having the success like that you've seen throughout your career. Like it didn't look like there was not a like a drop, right? Which some players do encounter in their first year. There wasn't a drop. You were still had an incredible season with Nipissing. What was this season? What did this season mean to you, and what were some of the highlights for you?
Yeah, I think right when we got there, we really started like the team bonding process and everything. So we had our training camp, our fitness testing, we're getting on the ice as much as we can. And we've also started to build a connection with the local minor hockey association. So they've actually changed their name to the North Bay Lakers. So it's kind of like we all kind of support them and coach them and stuff as well. But yeah, definitely the training camp, the fitness testing. We were on the ice a little bit, and then we did like an amazing race as a team. And it was kind of like a competition, team bonding type of thing. But in general, the first half of our season was unbelievable. We really came together. The chemistry was alive right from the beginning. The coaching staff were amazing, as I've mentioned. And yeah, so the first half was amazing. We came home for Christmas and we maybe struggled a little bit with the second half, but we finished in first, which was amazing. And then we unfortunately lost in the first round of playoffs, but that happens. And hopefully next year we can come back and maybe win it and go to nationals. So that's the hope for sure.
There it is. I love that. I love that. Let's aim high. Let's do it. Build upon what was a great year for you, right? So could you talk a little bit about the minor league team and the North Bay Lakers and just kind of what it means to you to have been a part of something like that, where it's like, you're directly helping to inspire the next generation, right? And you're a part of that process for them. So when they look back on this, they're going to say like, oh yeah, I remember Abby Lunney. She hung out with me. I remember, like, look at her. She's famous now. What does it mean to you to have that experience and to be able to connect with the community in that kind of way?
Yeah, growing up when I was playing minor hockey and everything, volunteering was a very big thing for me. I liked to help out with the teams, help out with charity events and stuff like that. So when I got up there and that was kind of a big part of the team, I was like, wow, this is just even better. It just keeps getting better. So each player was kind of given a team they were going to mentor. So I was with the U18 double B team. And we would go out to their practices, go on the bench whenever we can, and kind of mentor them and just help them, give them pointers, whatever it was that they wanted and needed. And we actually hosted a tournament. The North Bay Minor Hockey Association hosted a tournament in November, I believe. And we kind of did a thing with them where we would give every team in the tournament free tickets to our game. And we were trying to make a record-breaking like uh, seating.
But
um, yeah,
attendance.
attendance. That's the
Yes,
word.
there it is. Yeah.
So we ended up having a sold out game, and that was the first time we ever had it. We play in the North Bay Battalion rink, so there's I think about in between 6 to 8,000 seats. So we had a sold out game, and it was just an experience to remember. So yeah, it's a very cool opportunity to be able to work with them, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that in the future.
Okay, so I don't want to go too off the rails here, but I do want to follow up on that. How just could you talk about how cool that experience was when you sell out a rink of that size for the first time? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We kind of found out the week before that it was sold out. So, obviously, Coach Darren knows what it's like to play in front of a crowd like that. So, we trained on the ice with like loud music playing to kind of mimic the fans being loud and stuff in the stands. So, obviously, it was an exciting time, but we also needed to find ways to stay focused and keep our eyes on the prize for sure. But yeah, it was definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity and definitely an experience to remember, especially in my first year. That'll definitely stick with me.
Yeah, and I can tell once again with the giant smile on your face just how much that moment meant for you. So that's fantastic. I again I live vicariously. I can only imagine what it would have been like to just like look up and to see the stands full. Like that just there. That's like you said. That's just a memory that you're never going to forget.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So you know, I've alluded to it a few times, but you've obviously throughout your career, you've been a very productive forward. You are a very gifted goal scorer, but I know that through the many conversations I've had that I've been lucky enough to have with hockey players, it's not about the individual stats. It's always, one of the reasons that a lot of players get, or hockey players specifically get into hockey, is because it's a team sport and it's great to be able to play with other people and build those bonds, those relationships. But what I do want to do, I do still like to highlight at least a little bit of you in particular. So what I want to do is when I went through your stats and your accomplishments, which are lengthy, I might add. There's actually one that stood out to me, and this might not be something that you've thought of or that other fans of you may have thought of, but it's something that stood out to me, and it's that you have a knack for limiting your penalty minutes. And so in 20 games this past season, you had a total of 8 penalty minutes. Could you talk a little bit? And I might know the answer. It's just like, I just don't like going to the penalty box. That might be your answer, and that's totally fine. But which would be my answer. I don't want to do that skate. But could you talk a little bit about, your style of play, kind of in general, but also specifically as it applies to how you've been able to limit your trips to that dreaded penalty box?
Yeah, for sure. I would say I tend to play more of like a playmaking style, looking to set my teammates up and such, but obviously taking the chances when they come my way. I would probably say my strongest ability would be my skating, which has definitely helped me to make the jump from minor hockey to the university level, as well as staying out of the penalty box. And then something my dad just always used to tell me growing up was like, just keep your feet moving, keep your feet moving. So that definitely has stuck in my head. And I would definitely say if you can skate pretty well, then you can skate the game. And that just kind of helps you definitely stay out of the box. So yeah.
Well, and again, good motivation is to not have to be that one who ends up having to skate to the You do that once, and you're like, I never want to experience. Everyone's looking at me. My teammates are upset with me, and if the other team scores, oh, that's an even longer trip out of that penalty box. So that's good motivation too, I would say.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
of course. Okay, so that's fantastic, and again, definitely a great goal scorer. But it's great that you're also, when you look at your stats, you're also well balanced when it comes to assists as well. So, that kind of tells you the kind of character that you are beyond just being a great playmaker. But you also had the opportunity to represent Canada, which has to have been, a bucket list item, I'm sure, something that you only dreamed would be a possibility, and then it actually happened. So you had the chance to play in the U18 PWHL Women's World Championships in Sweden. Could you talk a little bit about that experience? And I mean, maybe just start with what was it like when you got the call or the invite, and maybe start there, and then walk us through that entire experience.
Yeah, so obviously growing up, it was a dream of mine. In elementary school, they would be like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you're older?" And I'd say, "Oh, I want to play professional women's hockey or play for Team Canada." So when I got the call, I was in tears, obviously. Um, my parents didn't really know what was going on. I was on the phone. I was just like what's going on here? Um, and then once I got off, we all kind of came together and just hugged and were just super excited. Um, it's something you might never get the opportunity to hear on that phone again, saying that you're gonna be representing your country. So I'll never forget that for sure. And then obviously it was confidential for a while, so I couldn't really tell other family members or anything. But when I could, we all put like our Team Canada jerseys on and walked over to our grandparents and we're like, didn't say anything. We were just standing there and they were all just like, "You're going, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yup." So they actually coordinated with my parents to book tickets to fly over there almost immediately when they found out. Um, so being able to go to Europe is obviously an experience of a lifetime, but being able to go over there and play hockey is just another level. Um, so yeah, it was amazing, everything about it. Um, we were in Stockholm for the training camp and everything, so we were there for a bit. Lots of on ice, off ice type of stuff, and obviously adapting to the time change because it was pretty drastic. And then once we got over to Oystersund, that was when the tournament was really starting, and we could see our family a little bit. And when we could, obviously, it was all hugs and all just talking, keeping them updated. But as the tournament went along, we were just getting better and better each game. And when that final game came and we were playing against Sweden, it was like, wow, it's definitely going to be like a sold out crowd. Like, we got to be ready. And once the final buzzer hit and we had won gold, it was something that will be in my heart forever and I will definitely never forget. So,
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their diets and health so they can perform their best both on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is available now. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's MELISSABOUFOUNOS.com/course, and make sure to use code Rinkside to save $50 off the regular price. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
Okay, so two follow-up questions. I'm going to ask them sequentially because otherwise I'll forget them. What was it like? Again, just going back, I love that story about your grandparents, just you showing up with everyone showing up with the Team Canada jerseys. Could you talk a little bit more about the reaction from your grandparents in that case? And I guess like your family as a whole, but also equally as important, what have you done with the medal? Where is the medal? Is it like hung in like a cabinet, in like framed in some way, or what have you done with the medal?
So there's actually someone from Whitby who does like woodwork, and they made this big like wooden circle thing, and it basically says like U18 world champion, and then my name, and on the back engraved is everyone from the team and the coaching staff. So there's like a little hoop thing on there, and the medal's hanging on there. um so yeah, it's safe, it's hanging in my room, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is significantly better than I'm sure what a lot of people end up doing, myself included, likely, which would be just to hang it somewhere. That's very fancy. And I love the touch of having everyone's name engraved on the back of it. I think that's just, it wasn't just, it's, again, like we've said, hockey isn't just an individual sport. It takes quite a team to be able to make this sort of thing happen, right?
For sure, yeah.
Fantastic. So, I want to know, you kind of touched on a little bit as well, but obviously on ice, successful, to say the least. You won gold. So like, it doesn't get any better than that. But what were some of the things that you did off ice? What were some of your favorite memories of Sweden being in that tournament, but off ice, and connecting with your teammates?
Well, we would usually be able to go out for dinner and like lunch and stuff with family. So we would have like our one roommate who you usually would be pretty close with because you're living with them for a whole week. But yeah, we would go out for lunch together. We would go for walks down the street. We would have like team walks before we'd play and everything, just to get the legs moving. Some activation type things. But yeah, we honestly did everything together. It was just a great group of girls, and we all got along. There was just a big piece of chemistry there, amongst all of us, and it just made it easy and definitely super fun. So,
And
yeah.
forgive me, but did you, prior to this tournament, had you played with any of these teammates before?
A few on like a spring team, but not on like a full season team. So
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
knew most of them, but I've played against them since I started playing basically rep, but yeah, so never played with them really, but the chemistry was there right when we made the team. So
That's wild. The chemistry, like it's just sometimes it's just the stars align and it just clicks right away. And like you said, you were able to build each game, you got better and better, right? And it's just wild to think that, none of you had, like a number of you hadn't played together. I'm sure there were probably some teammates from other teams, but at least in your case, like you were able to still develop chemistry even without or despite the fact that you hadn't played with any of these players. And I think that's a testament to just how important the team aspect and the team mentality is when it comes to hockey. Is that kind of fair to assume?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the natural transition at this point would be, we need to talk about the PWHL. I think it's super important, especially as someone like yourself who's just starting their collegiate career. Up until now, or up until prior to last season, a lot of players, yourself likely included, were wondering, I guess I'm gonna, I want to go to university to study a program that I will be able to use in my future, because there will come a day when I just won't be able to play pro hockey, or I'll have to go overseas. In this case, now we have the PWHL. So I just kind of want to maybe start with your initial impressions of the PWHL, the success that the inaugural season had, and the excitement around fans. What were your thoughts around the inaugural season?
Yeah, it was definitely a long time coming, but now that it's here, it's definitely here to stay. all the veterans obviously have been continually working to create this league. And for all the young girls, we've always dreamed of playing at the professional level, but for the longest time, that wasn't always possible. Obviously, it has made big moves in the sports industry, and I hope that someday I can play in the league. And the PWHL has allowed little girls to dream big with the hopes of being able to play at that professional level someday. I wasn't able to go watch any of the games until playoffs came and I was home from school. So my dad and I went to the first playoff game, which was also a piece of history because it was the first game in all of the PWHL. But we went to watch Toronto, and once we got there, it was just packed with people. Everyone was so excited to be there. Lots of little girls, lots of boys, lots of parents, like everyone was there to watch. And once you got in there, it was just loud, full, sold out. It was amazing. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes, and obviously I'm trying to keep the dream alive and hope to play there someday for sure.
Yeah, I guess you've touched on it. You touched on it there, but I think one of the things that has certainly not just the product on the ice has been commented on. Obviously, it's a lot of fans weren't necessarily expecting it, especially with the physicality, which is something that we've never seen in women's hockey before, but it has been widely appreciated both from the player perspective as well as the fans. But speaking of those fans, when you're sitting in that rink, you're not playing, you're sitting in that rink, you're thinking about your own career. You're thinking about, you're looking around, you're like, this is the first year. Imagine what this will be like 4 years from now when you've graduated. You can declare for the PWHL if that's what you end up, obviously, if that's what you end up doing. But 4 years from now, imagine what it could be like. What kind of goes through your mind as you're sitting there? Maybe you're not even thinking about that because you're just soaking it all in, but maybe in reflecting on that experience, what did that do for you when you think about the time, the moment you'll declare for the draft?
Yeah, I definitely was sitting there soaking it in for sure. And my dad was like, "Oh, go stand down there. I'm gonna get your picture in front of the ice." And I was like, "Well, maybe someday I'll actually be on there and you can get my picture." So definitely just keep working hard and hoping that someday I can make it there. Obviously, pushing myself and yeah, honestly, it's been a dream of mine from forever. So it's definitely a dream of mine still today, and I just look forward to the future.
What does that do for your like how you approach the game when you see just how successful this inaugural season was, the growth of the I mean, we can extrapolate that just like women's sports in general, but more obviously more specifically with women's hockey. When you see the success that the league had this season, how does that change how you approach the way you train, the way that you approach the game, the maybe focus more on the hockey IQ aspect of things? Like, how does that ultimately change your approach to your style of play and how you want to elevate your play even further in order to make an incredible impact at that level as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a big part of it is the mental aspect. Just making sure that you're really pushing yourself kind of past what you used to. Not saying that obviously you don't push yourself, but now that this is here, it's like if you want to get to that level, like you need to make sure that you're doing more than the other people around you who are also pushing themselves to get there. So whether it's doing one extra rep of a skating drill or one extra rep in the gym, whatever it is, it's really gonna ultimately help you to get to where you want to go. And yeah, I think it's just keeping the dream alive and keep working hard, and that's all you can really do. You have to control the controllables, and once my time comes, I'll be ready for sure.
Yes, you will. And thank goodness for those early years in your career when you were forced to do that extra lap around the ice, right? It kind of sets you right in motion for this, right? So
Yeah,
thanks,
exactly.
Gramps, for that. All right. So as we wrap up the show, the last segment is always a fun game of basically 20 questions, but these are scientifically proven to be able to really understand Abby Lunney. So, and this is the crack team here at the Rinkside Rundown podcast has put these questions together. So I hope you're ready. And let's dive in if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, these are gonna be tough. So, what are you most proud of from this past season with Nipissing?
Honestly, I'm probably most proud of just the team in general. Us sticking together through all the ups and downs. Um, Obviously, we didn't finish the way we wanted to, but we never got down on each other. We stayed together as a team, and I think ultimately that's what's going to help us in this upcoming season, and moving forward in general.
Okay, fantastic. It's always interesting to be able to connect with an athlete in the off season because during the season, it's pretty straightforward. You know, you're hitting the rink, you know, pretty much every day, workouts, all those sorts of things. But it's a little bit different when it's the off season. So, like, could you tell us what does the off season look like for Abby Lunney?
Yeah. So we're given a workout program. It's pretty intense. It's usually 5 to 6 times a week. It involves lifts, plyometrics, and then running and sprint training and everything like that. So I usually will get up in the morning, have a quick breakfast, and then either head to the gym or head to the soccer field just down the street and pretty much train, come home, eat, and then whenever I can get to the rink. And yeah, lots of training, definitely, for sure.
I had a feeling you might say that. I feel like you should forward me that workout routine so that I could train a little bit better. But I'm not going to ask you what your least favorite workout is. What is your favorite workout? At least is it a week? Like, do they rotate so they're different workouts every week or every month?
Yeah. So
Okay.
for the first month, we'll have like 3 different lifts we have to do. So like week 1 would be like lift 1, lift 2, and then like plyometrics and 2 running exercises, whether it's sprint training or energy systems. But then the month after, it'll kind of change. So it'll be different lifting exercises, higher intensity, higher amounts of sprints, and then further distances or trying to be like your hand timed 5 kilometer type of thing. So each month it changes, but for 1 month at a time, it's the same workouts, just in a different order, or kind of you can do it however you want as long as you get them all done. Obviously, depending on each person's schedule. But yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
I like to run. So I definitely like the sprint training, not necessarily when it's super humid out, but it's still fun. And then obviously lifts are always good too, but I definitely like the running.
That would explain why your first step is always so quick. So it's all coming together now. You're painting a picture here. So during the season, what would be your go-to pregame meal?
So when we have home games, I'll usually make pasta with chicken and Alfredo sauce, and then cut up some like vegetables on the side and then some chocolate milk. And then on the road, most of our games are obviously pretty far. We're from North Bay, so we're sponsored by like Eastside Mario's up in North Bay, so they provide us with meals on the road. So normally I'll have some sort of pasta again, and then a salad and some bread, and then usually an iced coffee right before the game as well.
Ooh, bold choice. I don't know that I could play. Well, I can't play hockey, but I don't know that I'd be able to do so with like the caffeine high, because I'd be worried about what would happen when the caffeine left me, and now I'm dragging myself to the bench. During the season, who owned the dressing room music, and what was played most often?
So during warm up, we would like off ice warm up. It would usually be Kara Denhode. She would play kind of like some remixes. I think it's off Spotify. I'm not even 100% sure, but they were kind of like our go-to. We would listen to the same one every single game. And then once we went off to do like our own stretches, she would listen to her own music, and we would all kind of put our own headphones on. And then in the dressing room, it's my stallmate, Mallory Dominico. But yeah, she plays all kinds of music, takes requests. But country's a big one in our dressing room. So
yeah, well, it's North Bay, so that totally makes sense. So, and speaking of music, I want to know, if you could only listen to one song for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? Now, it doesn't, and I always share this caveat. It doesn't mean that you can, like, it has to be playing all of the time. But if you were to play a song, it has to be this song. Do you have one in mind?
well, for the past like couple years, one of like our right before we go on the ice songs was like Night Shift by John Party. I don't know what it is about it, but like I'm a pretty big singer in the dressing room, so I'll just be there getting in the groove and I'm just singing along. So I would probably say Night Shift.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up after this because I've never heard that song. So, what's something that remains on your bucket list? And it can be either, professionally or obviously personally as well. It doesn't have to be just on the ice.
Yeah, I would probably say just to be able to like travel around the world and play. Obviously, being able to play in Europe was an amazing experience and something I won't forget. But that's kind of the furthest, obviously, I've been away from Canada to play. Few tournaments in the States, but other than that, most of it's been pretty local within Canada. So I would probably say just being able to like travel around the world and see the world while also getting to play the sport I love.
And is there a particular place that you might want to, like, this is the first spot that I would want to visit?
Honestly, not really. I don't know. I just would like to see the world.
That's fair. Throw a dart at a map and just go there. That's totally fine too. Yeah. That's a good approach. That's totally fine. What's something people may not know about Abby Lunney?
That's a great question.
Thank you. Crack team here at Rinkside Rundown we spare no expense.
I don't know. I honestly,
Do you have like a hobby that people don't necessarily know about, or are you like, you're somehow like you're also not only just a great hockey player, but you're also you can play piano very well or something like that?
I'm definitely not good at music, but
Okay. You do try to sing, so that's good news.
yeah, so
Yeah, so there you go.
opinions maybe about my singing, but
Yeah.
I definitely like to sing.
Yeah.
Um, Something people don't know about me. Hmm. Honestly, I kind of like tell everything like about me. I don't have much to hide, so I don't know. But maybe in high school I played field hockey for the first time and it was like super fun, and there was almost a time where someone was like, "Oh, would you like stop playing ice hockey and like continue to play field hockey for Team Ontario and like travel and play. And I was like, no, I love ice hockey too much. Sorry. But
Oh,
yeah, so
wow.
maybe field hockey.
Okay, I love that. That's good. That's good. And lastly, what is something that motivates you and inspires you both personally and professionally?
Um, Again, I would probably just say like my family. They've obviously done so much for me over the years, and not only through my sport, but for me just as a person. Um, so I would definitely say them. Everyone, they all inspire me in some way, and I'm just very fortunate for that. So
Good answer, and a perfect spot to unfortunately have to say goodbye. Abby, this has been an absolute blast. I'm so thankful for you taking time out of your off season to hang out with me today. It's been great to get to know you. Great to be able to hear your story, and hopefully, you'll continue inspiring the next generation. Not to necessarily, they don't have to go to the States. They can stay in Canada and have a great career here. And then now there's the PWHL to look forward to. But Abby, it's been fantastic. So thank you so much for doing this today.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And there you have it, folks. For Abby Lunney, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.